Hey everybody, welcome to week 247. And no, it's not 250, and the Dung Kings are not here yet, but they are arriving on April the 3rd. Be there, or be square. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please let me know in the chat and I will make sure that I get your email address. But we're doing a live studio audience for our 250th week anniversary at the Hamilton here in Charlotte. We will still be broadcasting for those of you that are outside of Charlotte or can't make it. But oh yeah, I mean there's going to be all kinds of fun and frivolity that is happening there. So at the Hamilton and by the Music Factory in Charlotte. It's always a fun time. And so anyway, but I'm wearing black today because people are in mourning, but I'm still actually I'm wearing white in the inside because I'm very hopeful. But we're gonna be talking about like what's happening in this stock market, and we've got the amazing Austin Palmer. He's coming in from Starlink. He's in outer space, and he's going to be coming in and joining us thanks to Starlink. And trying to make some sense out of what's going on with this crazy market and tariffs and all kinds of other stuff. But before we kick it over to Austin, make sure that you go easy on him. I know that he's been on here before, but we want him to come back. So go easy on him. You can harass Adam and Jack and myself in the chat. Hit us up with questions though. This is meant to be interactive, and like there's a lot of questions going on out there like, hey, should I be doing this? Should I be, putting everything in a can in the backyard? Should I be buying gold? What should I be doing? Blah blah blah. Austin's your man. So before we get into that, Adam, any rants? Any like I'm sure you've got some ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, here a tariff, there a tariff, everywhere a tariff. That's all.
That's all you
Yeah,
got.
not
All right.
there's not much more that I can say beyond that.
Okay, so Jack, I'm going to go to you, and this is on Corporate Transparency Act because, like, is there anything new that's happened on that? Because the last week it was like off again. Has it come back on?
No, which is surprising because usually there's probably a 48 to 72 hour gestation period between then people changing their mind. But I think that at this point we're probably in a longer term pause on it because you have the Treasury Department saying they're not going to enforce it. So if they're the ones that are in charge of enforcing it, or that division of the executive branch is in charge of enforcing it, and they said they're not, and I would imagine that that is in line with what the White House wants, at least for now, and because they're not going to do anything that is going to impact or go against what the White House wants to do, or at least any indications of that. So I think that that's we're okay for now in not doing anything, and I don't think that's going to change anytime in the near future. I don't know if you want to get into the extension or the possible extension, or I should say, let me say, it's still a possible shutdown
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah, I think it'd be worth addressing because
Okay.
it's coming front and center.
Okay. So it's a matter of understanding, and I'm not sure I have all the correct numbers, but okay, so the White House and the Senate and the House are controlled by Republicans, right? And so the challenge is that just because you have control doesn't mean you're going to get the sufficient amount of votes. So my
Right.
understanding is that this new budget and funding of the government got through the House, and it is sitting at the Senate, and there's not enough votes. And the Democrats have basically said, the Senate Democrats have said, no one asked us about anything. So they're just being, thrown in and asked to pass. I understand that the Democrats have put forth a 1 month extension to try to get through and then open up or continue with negotiations, which is going to be rejected by Republicans, supposedly. And there's all kinds of backstories as to whose fault it is. The Democrat side of it is, so you have pretty much entire control of the federal government, meaning two of the three branches, and you still can't get it together and get it passed. So there must be a problem with it. Republicans are saying, no, this is kind of what we need to do, and we're not going to continue funding all of this stuff that you guys want to continue funding, a la Elon Musk initiative to cut waste and spending and everything else. And again, these are not political statements, nor, how any of us feel about anything on this. I mean, we do have our own feelings about things, and, we'll maybe dabble into that, but this is not a endorsement or rejection of anything, because that's not what we're about on this program. So I can go into, further details, but that's basically it at this point. You know, will the government shut down? I don't know. And I don't think that they're in session. I think that they're out of session at this point. So there's also a logistical challenge of having votes and, do we come back? Do we not come back? Meaning members of Congress. So that's what I know about it at this point.
You mean we would ask them to actually do their jobs that they're getting paid for? Well, they're getting paid a lot more from other sources, evidently, because of how wealthy some of these people are on $200,000 a year salaries. But that's a whole other thing. And it's on both sides of that aisle. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. But thank you for that kind of resounding, very politically correct, legal response, because we feel the same way. Like, yeah, hey, we're everybody has opinions, but this is not a forum to be throwing Molotov cocktails at the other side. I mean, like, good grief.
I mean, we all have a lot of other things to worry about. So, for example, are my Tar Heels I'm wearing the bling. I only
Oh,
bring this
dude.
out
I got
a
a blue
couple
shirt
times
on.
in March. So I'm trying to bring all of that good will and thoughts to my boys. But, never mind. I can't believe I even said, but no, we're going to do it. So, all right, all good.
Yeah. Well, and Austin's wearing Carolina blue as well. I don't have a dog in the fight, so I just decided I'm wearing black today. But yeah, so here's a quick question before we dive into this stock market volatility. And Austin, walk us off the ledge, bring some common sense into the room, help us understand that.
Yeah, and none of this
However,
BS, none of this BS realtor. It's never a better time to buy. It's never a better time to sell.
yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
All right. Well, that lets out my.
Wait.
Yeah, either that or hey, I'll be at the Denny's if you want to meet there. Get some steak and eggs, and you can tell me all about your annuities.
No,
Yeah.
you can't get eggs now. Eggs are too expensive.
Yeah.
I can't buy people eggs anymore. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Supposedly, price of eggs are coming down. But the big question I've got for you Tar Heel fans is, is their new coach, evidently he's got kind of a storied NFL career, and whatever. But I saw a picture with him in a Carolina blue blazer, but the sleeves were still on. Are those things going to get torn off, or like, I'm just curious. Is there some sort of a dress code that has been enforced on this guy, or like, I don't know. I've never seen him in a jacket other than a hoodie with sleeves ripped off. So Belichick, we'll see. All right, so that's what I got. Austin, walk us
Ugh.
through like, what's been happening and what do we do besides put everything into a can, or now's the best time in the world to buy everything?
Um, Golly, well, Adam already took we're in the only business in the world when things go on sale, nobody shows up, right? So it is funny. I said to someone yesterday, if assuming you eat eggs, or better yet, let's use gas. If gas is $3 and I said, hey, I'll sell you today 6 months worth of gas for $2.50 a gallon, just prepay it. Most people would take that, right? But they won't do that with stocks. You see NASDAQ down and all of that. It is somewhat interesting. I think, y'all have heard me say it before. I think it's psychological. It's a matter of perspective. So this week, the calls have been the market's down 5%. Okay. The market is down 5% in 3 weeks since February 19th. But for the year, I guess now it's down 10%, but for the year, it's only down 4.5. If we look at since the beginning of last year, it's up 17.4%. Sure, it used to be up 23%.
Yeah.
To me, that's okay. That's normal. I mean, we see 5 and 10% pullbacks nearly every year, 18 months, multiple. In fact, we had 5% pullbacks in 2020, 4 in 21, none in 22, 1 in 23. And so now we've had, a 5, almost a 10% pullback. The market went higher in all of those over that time period in every instance. So buy high quality, diversified portfolio, and I think you'll be all right for the long haul.
So what kind of calls are you getting? Like I'm curious, what are the questions on people's mind? Like the reason we started this podcast or webinar, it's not a podcast. The reason we started this was because Adam said, I'm answering the same question 15 times a day when the world looked like it was going off a cliff in 2020. As a matter of fact, it was the 13th of March when we were last in the office, just so you know. So, if you could do the same thing, Austin, here are the questions I'm answering 15 times a day, and maybe not that many times, but what are the big ones and what are your answers?
What's going to happen? What's going on? What do you think about tariffs? So the first one's the big picture is focus on the big picture. One, very few people are 100% stocked. So a well-diversified portfolio, you've got some bonds, you've got some cash, it's going to weather the storm, or historically, it's always weathered the storm. So with those people, I point out, we made it through '08. Some of those people were around for the dot-com bust with me.
Yeah.
9/11, the recession of 2002, flash crash, China growth slowdown in 2015, COVID. So to me, that's a broken record. I mean, and I go back, y'all have heard me say this. The end of '82, the Dow was at 1,000. Now it's 41,000. So a diversified portfolio over a 40 some odd year period, excluding dividends, gave you 40 times your money. All you had to do was weather the storm. So it's the same old story. And I think most people just say, I just needed to hear you say it. So that takes care of 80% of them. The tariff ones, what do you think about tariffs? Isn't this a bad thing? And my answer, try and be apolitical. In a vacuum, tariffs are bad. You had an EU official come out and say, talking about the US, tariffs are bad. These taxes, make prices go up for everybody, and they restrict growth, and they harm employment. I agree with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're charging a VAT, which is essentially a tariff on everything we sell to them. So
Yeah, true.
why do you have a problem if we do it? And I'm not I'm not saying I'm in favor of this reciprocal stuff. I can normally, if I disagree with somebody, which the current administration seems to disagree with a lot of countries that charge us, I pick up the phone and I say, hey, Jack, you got a minute? I want to talk to you about something. Hey, Gary, something's been on my mind. So
Yeah.
I try and differentiate how it's being handled versus the point. If you don't like the current administration, then it's doom and gloom and you hate them. If you do like them, you tend to see it, okay, it could probably be handled a better way. Um, I'm not saying I like the current administration. I'm saying if other people are doing it to us, what is the end goal? I don't think anybody has an end goal to increase prices 25% around the world.
Right.
So what is the end goal? Hopefully it's to lower or eliminate tariffs on our goods, and then we wouldn't have tariffs on other people's goods. Um, the other part of it is it brings jobs back. The last administration touted, and rightly so, hundreds of thousands of jobs that were brought back into the United States. Many of those came because of the tariffs that were in place and later expanded in that administration. So to some degree, we've seen that it works from time to time. Unfortunately, I think what you're seeing now is every time you wake up, you're like, what's new today? So champagne's going to have a 200% tariff. I mean, it's just out of left field, and the market is reacting to the uncertainty.
Yeah.
I don't think the market is thinking that everything's going to have a tariff indefinitely. That's not the end game.
Yeah. Adam, you got your hand raised.
Yeah. So I'm gonna remind everybody that I'm a libertarian. I'm gonna remind
Everybody hates
everybody
you.
that my dad is still a registered Republican. I'm gonna remind everybody that hey, they watch a hell of a lot of MSNBC, and I'm gonna remind everybody that they're also 83. So the call that I get is, we're screwed. What are your wealth people saying about the market? You know, like, what are we supposed to do with, our retirement money? And I know, like, hey, it's going to be facts and circumstance specific and all that kind of stuff. But, if you kind of, if you kind of break down people into investment horizons, right now, what do you, what are you telling them that would be different from what you would have told them 2 years ago, if anything different? Or actually what, like, is anything different now versus what you would have told the same person that had, or a different family that has the same investment horizon, which is, 2 to 3 years. I mean, I hope my parents live longer than that, but it's, like, it's not going to be forever.
Right.
So you say 2 to 3 years. And that I went through that with my dad. That was his life expectancy, right? His portfolio, right? So he passed away a few years ago, and so we can say 10 years ago, he had a less than 10% life expectancy. But I didn't expect him to spend all of that money in that 10 years. So his wife is younger than him. So I had that discussion with him of, are we looking at your life expectancy or y'all's jointly? Beyond her, it bypasses me and goes to my children. But are we looking at my life expectancy or my children, who at the time were 29, 16, and 15? So not that he had an aggressive portfolio, but it wasn't a 2-year life expectancy and it was all cash and bonds either. It was blended. So to your point, I don't know who the next call is going to be, whether they're aggressive, moderate, or conservative. But the work, I think most people want to hear, what are you doing today while it's down? The real work is done ahead of time. We had 2 years in a row of more than 20% growth in the market. If you just let that ride, then you had an overweight to stocks and you're feeling it more than you probably should. If you rebalanced and went back to your original allocation, you've already mitigated some of the damage that's happened in the last 3 weeks. And that's just prudent portfolio management, frankly.
So
Adam, you got your hand raised.
yeah, so let me check the attendee list, see who I'm going to offend with this next question. It appears that I will offend no one, which is fabulous. Hopefully I don't offend anybody on the playback. So, like, this is also kind of prime time when a whole life insurance person is going to come out of the woodwork, or like an annuity sale. I joked about the annuity salesperson. Annuity salesperson's come out of the woodwork and see, this is why you do this, Austin. You do this because, you get to lock in your gains and you never go down, kind of walk us through like that whole set of shenanigans and nonsense, relative to, hey, if I just was sitting in ETFs right now, or a balanced portfolio.
Yeah, if you're sitting in a balanced portfolio, 60-40, moderate. Your bonds are up a little bit for the year, but not down, and your stocks are down. So as of right this second, 5.5%. So think about that. 60% of your money, if you were just in the S&P, would be down 5.5. So overall, you're down 3.3. 40% of your money is up 1.25. Okay, so there's whatever, positive 0.5. So net those two together and you're down 2.8%. We've seen that happen 2.8% 3 times since August 5th in the market. I mean, that's not bad. People ask me that, would I buy an annuity? That's fine for some people. In my mind, you're paying an insurance company for peace of mind. That's it. You're adding expense so that you can sleep at night and letting them bear some of the risk. And they're not altruistic.
Yeah,
They
they're
don't.
not in it because they're a charity.
Correct.
And if you look at where they have those funds invested, guess where they have them invested?
It's in the same market
Yeah.
because they understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The real question I ask people is relative to what? So I'll pick on the current administration a little bit. People say, aren't you scared? Relative to what? So relative to Barack Obama's 3rd year, and here's this young guy who sometimes I agree with him and sometimes I don't, but he's well-spoken, surrounded by educated people, and he's even-keeled. Sure, it's pretty scary compared to that. Joe Biden, you can call him Sleepy Joe, but I don't think he was going to do anything crazy a few years ago. So yeah, relative to that, it's scary. But relative to, hey, Russia's putting nuclear bombs in Cuba, no, this isn't scary. Relative to, hey, Congress can't get its act together week after week after week, and we're seeing big, giant banks start to fail. That was scary.
Yeah.
Relative to, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to cut some regulations, maybe accelerate a vaccine. But in the meantime, people are dying. Don't go outside and don't go to work. We're going to shut down everything. We're going to send some stimulus money for those people who can't work. And just bear with us. Those things were scary. Somebody saying, I'm going to pull this lever to get what I want, but I can pull it back, or push this lever, pull it back, or whatever with tariffs. It's annoying. It's discombobulating. Again, you wake up and, steel prices are going to have a 50%, or aluminum prices, or wood, or whatever, 200% tariff on champagne. Oh, well, there goes Christmas mimosas. That's not scary. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Thanks for their perspective, Austin.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm taking a trip to France. So as a side hustle, I hadn't looked at the legality of this. If people will message me, I might be able to bring back champagne at only 100% tariff to compensate me. If the market's going to zero, I won't have a job. So I'm going to be a champagne smuggler for a week or two.
Yeah, that's right. That's funny.
All right, gallery, you're awfully quiet for today. Like, come on, hit us up with questions or concerns. Here we go. Good job, Megan. Here we go. Here's the question. Predictions on steel and aluminum prices in the next few months. Oh boy, we need the great Karnak. Now, remember, this is not legal CPA, or investment advice, just so you know. You want to take that,
Um,
Austin?
sure. Um, they'll go up until proper negotiations happen and then status quo, period.
Yeah. If I was a bet man, I
That's
would say the same thing.
that's that's my guess.
You know, what's funny is we have this crazy ability to forget. Just go back in the Wayback Machine about 7.5 years ago and look at, or 8, and look at what Trump did the first time. He rattled some cages, threw some tariffs, blah, blah, blah. And what happened?
Market went up.
Yeah.
So let me throw this out, and I'm going to caveat this. I'm not supporting either party. I'm just hypothesizing something. When people are uncertain, when the market is down, we tend to spend less on discretionary items. Less hotel stays, less travel, vacations. I'm going to buy a pool, a boat, a car. Most of those things are delayed. In our parlance, we call that pent-up demand. Most people don't want to go forever without a vacation, so it will come. Think
Right.
COVID. Okay, it's a scary time. Usually that creates pent-up demand. People are going out to eat less, little things, and you think this isn't a big deal. This isn't a big deal. And I'm not saying the administration has thought this through. I'm just throwing out this theory. We've got all this craziness going on. People are worried. Consumer sentiment is down. We know that leads to lower spending. When there's lower spending, we're a consumer-driven economy. Growth slows. Bad for the market. That's what we're seeing, right? Bad for the market when growth slows. But what's it good for? Rates. So I did a little math this morning. The average home price in America was about 390,000 at the end of 2019. Now it's 512.
Wow.
That sounds
Wow.
like that's 4% a year. But that's not the killer. The killer is that the average mortgage rate went from 4.13 to 6.9. So somebody's paying 6%, say, on a $500,000 mortgage or 512. That's almost $3,400 a month. If the economy does slow, and things do slow down and the market's kind of bad and sits here for a while, what would happen to rates? They'd probably get cut. And so that 6% mortgage could become 5%, and that would free up $335 a month for a family. Interestingly enough, we hear about grocery prices. During that same period of time, they went from a little under 500 to a little over 700 per month.
Yeah.
Well, if rates went down 1% and you had a $500,000 mortgage, that's effectively cutting your grocery bill in half in terms of cash flow. What would happen then? We saw it with 9/11 and the 2002 recession. People tightened up. Nobody went to Disney World. Nobody wanted to get on a plane. Nobody did this. And that administration said, go out and spend. In fact, they advanced people's tax refunds to force them to spend. What happened to the market in 03, 04, 05? Took off. So I'm not saying the administration has plotted this out, but I think people take things and go, oh my God, the average home price is up, $130,000. Over 5 years, it's 4% a year. A little bit more than normal, but that's not out of hand. Groceries, okay, they're up 44% over that same 5-year period. We can make that go away with a rate cut. One percentage on the rates. 2% in that same family is, so get rates down to 4%. By the way, the low point was just below 3. If we got rates on a 30-year mortgage down around 4, you'd save $650 a month on a $500,000 mortgage. Would that cycle through the economy and let the money multiplier kick in? Sure. Would people travel more? Sure. They might even be able to afford champagne. So to me, it's a matter of time.
Cool. You running for Fed chairman?
No, no, no. In any administration, in any job like that, I always laugh. Best case scenario, 40% of the people in the country don't like you.
Yeah.
Right? 60% approval rating would be phenomenal. Can you imagine going to work every day and 40% of the people you worked with said, yeah, I don't really like him at all.
I mean, that
And
doesn't
half of
happen
those
here at
hate you.
BBW, but at a law firm that I know, but not Shoemaker,
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to.
Yeah. You got a couple questions, Gary.
Yeah, this one, so we already did the predictions on steel, but this one is with US dollar dropping, do you recommend investing in alternative or alternate currencies? Any favorites?
No, no. And that's probably overly simplistic, but every major purchase I make for the rest of my life will be in dollars. Um, no, no, I don't want to try and be a currency trader. If the question is about Bitcoin and the like, then definitively no. But I'm in the minority.
Hey,
I think
it was
investing
such
in
a
baseball
buy, and
cards would
it
be
was a
better.
buy at 100,000. It's going to go to 200,000. Oh, it's 80,000. I don't get I don't get that how they get those valuations at all.
You
I
mean,
don't.
well, wait a second, Gary. It's because the person that takes your real money then tells you how much your fake money's worth.
Um, it's interesting. The people that take your money to buy that take dollars. It's just like if you ever get those emails or things you see and it's like buy gold, buy gold. Not a single one of them has asked me, and the dollar's going to zero or the death of money. That was a book by one of those guys. And not a single one of them asked me to send them a couple cans of soup or a Bitcoin. They said check, money order, Visa, MasterCard, American Express.
Yeah.
So no, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. If you want to hedge currencies, get a diversified portfolio with international companies. So don't have all your eggs in Exxon. You could buy Total, and now you've got a European oil company. I'm not making a recommendation. I'm using that as an example. AstraZeneca in the drug pharmaceutical space versus Eli Lilly here.
All right, Austin, I've waited half an hour. Here it comes.
Okay.
There's the pitch.
And really what you're doing is you're helping me educate my own kids because they were both, their spring breaks overlapped last weekend. And so I asked them at dinner, hey, what do you guys think of the tariffs? And both of them were like, I don't know. And I said, okay, what if I told you that tariffs have an impact on your holdings, your investments? That got their attention. And I tried to give them an example of how that is, and I probably didn't do a very good job. So how about if you would pick the tariff du jour that you wish and maybe say, okay, once that splashes and hits the ripple, the wave, how does it impact us as business owners and us as individual investors? And, pick, it doesn't have to be a fund, but maybe a specific stock. So take the tariff as it impacts a stock all the way through and how that would maybe decrease the value of our holdings or our investments. Just very high level kind of thing. Because I think that I was asked that question not by my kids but by someone else, by a client, and they were like asking me for investment advice. I'm like, oh wait, that's way out of my lane, so let me not answer that question.
So let's do lumber from Canada or steel or aluminum, right? So those are going to impact construction costs. So theoretically, either we pay 25% more, or more likely, we lessen what we're building. So a big company says, whoa, prices are up 25%. We're going to delay the new factory. So what does that do? That crushes jobs. So in its simplistic form, it could impact that company, but presumably they're operating. They just want a new factory for efficiency or whatever. That would lead to raises and all of that and profits for them. But let's just assume they status quo, they just don't build the new factory. That's a lot of new jobs that didn't happen. That's a lot of wages that didn't happen. So what's impacted? Well, those people would have had a cell phone plan, had a cell phone, gone out to eat, taken a vacation, bought groceries, even if they were higher. In government, we call it deficit spending. In real world, we call it credit card spending. And that cycles through. I mean, these people have to eat. So it is a job killer. I don't think you have kids, I have kids. I don't know that there's ever been a tariff on Legos. I have no idea where they're made. I just know that they're plastic and they're ungodly expensive when times are good. There was probably a time in your life where you were doing okay. The kids were little, and if they were into Legos, it was Christmas or their birthday. You thought, I don't care if it's $100. I'm going to get them 3 sets. And they were so excited. Well, if the price went up from 300 to 375, maybe you said 2. Was their Christmas ruined? No, a lot of kids in the world would like to have 2 nice Lego sets. But somebody at a big box store might not have been hired if we extrapolate that further. There were less Legos sold. There were less lawnmowers sold, less bikes. If we keep going, it's not Legos in and of itself, but it's everything, construction being a big one. Great question, Donnie asked. That is the end goal. Can we make those Legos here? Can we produce steel here? That's what I was alluding to with the Biden administration. The end goal is either to eliminate tariffs on our goods or bring jobs back. Both of those are good. But you were asking me the negative impact. So I wasn't saying tariffs are negative. I'm saying there's a negative impact. There's also a positive impact. And where that will balance, I think it's going to be a phone call and some meetings, and we'll find balance.
Yeah. Adam, you got your hand raised.
Now that we're delving into economics, Mr. Nobel laureate, Mr. Palmer.
I don't even have Chat GPT open, so I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, so on the whole bringing jobs back thing, I think that, the thing where I run into like the circular reasoning argument for a minute is that, okay, we're trying to ship people out. That's reducing the labor force. We're already at pretty close to record low unemployment, to the point where we're becoming, like, in other words, like the people, like there's a theoretical minimum baseline of like unemployable, for whatever reason, right? We're also not reproducing, at a massive, replacement rate, in the US, right? So and at the same time, it's like, okay, we bring jobs back, there's not really necessarily enough workers to fulfill them, which means then we have a labor demand, which then means labor costs go up. Ergo, do we not end up in the same freaking place of increased? Yeah, well, Alex, yeah, just said it for me. Thanks for cutting to the chase on my word salad. Like I just don't see how prices don't go up. If I move to, in other words, like there's all sorts of, the reason the United Auto Workers feel abandoned with NAFTA and whatever the iteration was that Trump put in place, and like, everybody, and people in the Clinton administration said, hey, NAFTA was actually kind of a bad deal for the lower paid worker, wasn't because they felt like more lower paid workers needed lower paid jobs. It was because it led to wage deflation. And I totally get that and I'm sympathetic to it. But at the same time, I mean, I definitely have typed out, well, actually, another CPA firm has typed out this email, Austin, when asked about his price increase. Why did my bill go up? Have you freaking read the Wall Street Journal about the labor shortage in the CPA world? All my people just asked for 30% freaking raises because they're getting called off the hook by headhunters. Like, I had no choice, in the matter. React to all that. If you even remember what I said 5 minutes ago.
So one point of clarification is low paying jobs versus high paying jobs. There is a difference in working in the field versus working in a union job in Michigan. And when that job goes to Mexico, American families are hurt. And you say, well, our cars are cheaper. Oh, God. I'm going to seal my fate. I can never run for office because I'll alienate everybody. The problem is everybody in the US. So free markets work. Nobody wants to pay $1 for a solo cup. They don't even want to pay a quarter for it. And people in America make 30 some odd dollars. I've got that here, 34.54 last year per hour. You can't make solo cups paying somebody 34.54 with benefits. But somebody in wherever making 34.54 a month, solo cups, you can get 1,000 of them for $20 at your big box retailer. The problem is us. We think inflation is a bad thing. Is it? Everybody I know that works any job wants to make more money next year if they're doing the same job. That's inflation. But nobody I know wants to pay other people more to do that job. I can't believe restaurant prices. Really? Yeah, that's ridiculous. A steak used to cost $22 and now it's $37. You used to make 50,000 and now you make 380,000. I think you'll be okay. Everybody here is going, why is your bill going up? Don't you like to make more money? Yeah, but I'm worth it. Okay. The implication there being nobody else is. I've got more money, so Austin, you should charge me less. Okay. So when I go into your store and buy 6 shirts, you should charge me for 3.
Yeah.
When I come to your restaurant, you know what? I'm going to order 2 fillets because it's the same price as 1. Thanks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll never run for office because now everybody's like, that guy's an ass, but whatever. We're the problem.
Yeah,
well,
no,
yeah, you can't win because you're speaking truth.
I know, and I mean,
lies.
I think you sort of glossed over a point, and I'd like to address Donnie's question.
Go ahead.
That
And Alex has one in there too.
Yeah, I think the I think he hit. I think
Oh,
Austin hit on the Alex thing, which is sucking up. Yes, Adam, you are correct. Genius. You would have to pay a higher price if labor costs went up. Yeah, I think the question about, hey, we're bringing jobs back, there was really 2 parts to the question. Of course, if a job is outsourced that was insourced, goes overseas, someone's losing their job. Absolutely can see that point. But if I suddenly bring 300,000 jobs back, who's going to do them at a record low? Well, I guess laid off government workers. That was a joke, by the way. But they're meaning like there's a point where if you brought back, the last 10 years of manufacturing that's been outsourced back insourced, who would do it? And then I think to Donnie's point, so that's a question you can answer if you got an answer to that, or otherwise rhetorical and going to hang out there.
No, No, it's we would need more skilled laborers to do that. But if those jobs aren't there, then we won't train skilled labor.
Yes.
So, I mean, like most things, it's an education thing. While I'm on this rant alienating people, and maybe I'm just looking at things wrong. There is a certain CEO of a certain company that a lot of people thought was the Messiah, but ever since then, ever since he started liking Trump, he's not. And you asked about the calls. I've actually had about 5 of these calls, and I don't get it. This guy's laying off all these poor workers. We should boycott his company so that he lays off poor workers that have nothing to do with that. I don't know. We're so caught up in being right, and we're narrowly focused instead of looking at the big picture. I mean,
And I'm
uh,
going to
do
take the
you hate
poison
the
and
man
hope
because
he
he likes
dies.
Trump? Well, no, I mean, it's one thing if you hate the man because he likes Trump, say so. But if you hate him because he's laying off people that may or may not be doing a good job, why would you? You're not okay with that happening, but you want his employees to be laid off because you hate him. I don't know. That
No,
that to me
I just
speaks
want the
volumes.
I just want the share price to go down, but don't lay anybody off. I'm just kidding. Um,
Right.
but to Donnie's question, I think I would, which is, what if all the illegals that get deported get right back in line with everybody else, become legal, start paying tax, we're back up and running? I agree with that philosophically, as I think everyone else would either. The problem is it takes 4 freaking years to get here. So, and maybe Jack can opine on that in terms of like, no joke, like what it really takes to get here. So, yeah, if we want to throw a ton of money temporarily at processing all these people to get them legal in a reasonable time frame, absolutely. The problem is there's not enough resources to process people coming back. Did I get that right, Jack?
Yeah, that's exactly right. As soon as I saw that question, you started talking about it. I'm like, okay, it's great theory, but it can't happen because, as we've seen in other initiatives by the government, they are just not staffed to do it. They haven't allocated the budget to do it. And even if they were to fully fund it in this moment, there's a ramp up time to do that. So it may be a theoretical longer term fix, but definitely not a short term fix. And probably not a practical fix just because of all the variables that would have to go in the right direction. And the people who hold the purse strings have to believe in that as well, which is probably your largest or tallest hurdle out of all of that.
Yeah. Or posit this, Jack. Perhaps we put up a series of Chick-fil-A's at the border and say, process. This would get done efficiently and correctly with high quality every time.
And you have to learn how to say my pleasure, and then you're all good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Chick-fil-A, we need to, inscript some of those process people
Yeah, it's
because
actually
they've done it.
funny. Elon Musk shouldn't have been in charge of Doge. Chick-fil-A should have.
Well, if Chick-fil-A was, then nobody be eating chicken because they'd be all mad because of what. It's funny. I'm going to take this back to just businesses as well as households. When things are easy, the fat starts adding. It's just easy, right? We start spending more on this subscription every month and this one, but then when all of a sudden, oh crap, we got to tighten belts. Nobody likes it. But all kinds of stuff happens when things are really when nobody's paying attention sometimes, right? And I think that's what's happened. And it's not just over the last 4 years, it's been over decades. And nobody likes the ramifications of stuff getting exposed. And, like, I don't know. It's just, it's tough. But there's a
Well,
lesson in it for all of us. And that's like, hey, let's take care of what we can take care of. One of the things that I like, Adam, he talks about the serenity prayer a lot. Like, and it's so simple. Hey, God, grant me the wisdom to make what is it? It's
Grant me the
to
serenity
know
to
what I can
accept the things
control.
that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes. I mean,
Wait,
like,
that's a prayer? I thought that was a toast when you're drinking. Okay, maybe it works for both.
you could probably do both.
The
Yeah.
Okay,
irony of that statement is really, really funny.
thank you. Thank you.
Well played. You can send me the Starbucks gift card.
Okay, we got more coming in here. This is great. People are firing up here. I think if you've been gainfully employed for 5 to 10 years, there should be a path to citizenship. I would agree with that. Definitely need to speak up and make legalization more efficient, money well spent, in my humble opinion. And then finally, what are your thoughts around potential changes for Social Security for corporations and individuals?
I,
Oh, that's a
I,
good one.
I got to tell you, I'm going to get on the soapbox on this one because this is one where it's like, I don't, if when I run this by anybody, nobody freaking disagrees with this. So it's like, how can it be this freaking hard to get this done? Super simple. One, raise the retirement. Like I'm not getting, like, I don't know. Well, actually, I haven't pulled Jack yet. Jack, you going to get pissed off if it takes you 2 more years to start collecting Social Security than it does today?
Nope. And I will tell you that internally, we've also done that because we have a pension for
Right.
legacy partners that is no longer
Right.
available, but for younger people in the firm. But yes, we pushed that out, and there was a little bit of pushback for the most part. It's like, yeah, okay, they're practicing later.
Exactly. And there's already mechanisms in place for early withdrawal versus let it ride. Just let that stuff, stay the way that it is. Secondly, you know, nobody's going to cry about a half point rate increase to keep the thing solvent in perpetuity. So, like, those are, and then lastly, this is my own personal rant. Warren Buffett doesn't need his damn Social Security check. Like, I get the whole unfairness of like, he did pay and, he should get it. It's like, dude probably doesn't even know what account it's getting cashed to. So like there probably is some form of like, dude, seriously, you don't need the money. We can use it somewhere else. That could come in it. And in fact, we'll give you a charitable contribution for it. How about that? Like seriously, like those are so easy of fixes that's just Adam's opinion of what they should do.
I got one for you, Austin. Now that we're
Well,
talking about
yeah,
Social Security.
I
Yeah, go
concur
ahead.
100% on that. And I think you could also tie into that, Adam, going forward, people born in this year. So right now, if I'm making this up, 45, it's an additional 6 months. If you're 40, it's 6 months beyond that. 35, it just push it 6 months or 3 months every 5 years. And the spreadsheet starts to work over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Because give a 20-year-old whatever, 50 years to plan for it. And I don't know what the lost Social Security on average wage is, but we could calculate it. And I bet they could save less than $50 a month and make up for that 2, 3, 4 year difference.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So see if I can say this succinctly. So the betting on getting Social Security when you're eligible for that, and the junction of all your other investments in Social Security as being part of the aggregate of your retirement fund. Are you seeing that there's any different opinions at now as maybe there might have been 20 years ago with respect to Social Security supplementing your investments to give you a pot of money towards the end of your life? And I don't know if that makes sense. I guess what I'm asking is that, have people's perspectives on getting Social Security, are they hedging more or thinking that maybe that's not going to happen, or and maybe hedging their bets that they have to do something differently or invest differently? Does it impact people's investments? Maybe that's the way I say it.
Um, I don't know if it impacts their investments so much. I'm doing quick
Or their
math.
investment strategy, maybe, is really.
Well, so one of the things, and this goes back a few years, I don't know, call me lucky or good. I never thought we'd really be in danger of seeing Social Security be cut. Like we heard this early in our careers, and it just seemed, nah, they'll fix it. And that was 20 some odd years ago, and there hadn't been a
Right.
single administration who's fixed it. So I'm wrong. When I build a financial plan for somebody, so folks our age, one of the things I'll do is calculate what their early retirement from Social Security would be, say age 62. And I'll hard key that regardless of when they retire, because that's approximately 25, 30% less than what they'll get at full retirement age. And so if you kind of, well, I was going to get 2,000, but a month, I'm going to assume 1,500, and you build your plan as if that's all you ever get, then if you do get the 2 grand, great. And if they end up cutting it, you only get 1,500. We planned for that. And so in the planning piece of it, by assuming it's a lower amount, it forces people to save more. So maybe Jack, you say, damn, I didn't realize I would, in that example, only get 1,500 a month. I need to step up my after-tax savings over and above what I was doing while I have 15, 20 years to go. If it is cut, I hardly think it will be cut for people over the age of 60 at that time, if that makes sense. So whenever they decide to cut it, I don't think they're going to hit a 78-year-old with it. They have no opportunity to fix it.
Right.
So I doubt it's an across the board reduction if that happens. I think it is skewed towards the younger, the people with time to fix it. So I don't know if that answered your question. That's the conservative approach to how I build a financial plan. Let's assume that this happens. How do we factor that in? But I still don't think that's really what's going to happen. I think more along Adam's idea, that's what's going to happen. It'll be fixed.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is that occasionally we'll, with business owners, they'll say, okay, well, I really in my my portfolio, what I look at is I really don't include that in there, any Social Security. I don't include maybe necessarily the value. Like if you're in a service provider and, as a partnership, the value of the partnership, if you're going to cash out later on. And so those are kind of kept back as being bonus money down the road. So, but what that does is it makes them work harder or change their investment strategy if they don't have that on their mind, on the books, literally and figuratively. So that's why I was asking that. So yes, you covered it.
Well, this has been a good spirited discussion. Good stuff. I wish everybody had kind of the same sort of common sense that's been banted around here, but I'm not sure everybody does. Um, so, any parting words of wisdom, Austin, Adam? That's always sketchy wisdom, but maybe. And Jack.
Buy low, sell high, ride out the storms. Better days are ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that on my license plate.
I'm just going to keep my head in the sand because it really doesn't matter about anything. So I'm all good.
And the
That's right.
final one from Ellen is go heels. There you go.
Oh, listen to that.
Yes.
That's
All right.
All
Well,
right. See you
I
guys.
hope that works. See you guys. Have a great day. We'll put this up on BGWCP CPA YouTube channel, and Shoemaker has the same thing. It'll be up there later today. See you guys.
Thanks for
Thank
having me,
you,
guys.
Austin.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.